So for this morning, something a little different from the book of Ezekiel, the valley of dry bones. Them, dry bones. The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord, and he set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. He asked me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" And I said, "Sovereign Lord, you alone know." Then he said to me, "Prophesy to these bones and say to them, Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make a breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord." So I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I prophesied, there was noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone. I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared, and on the skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, "Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, Son of man, and say to it, This is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breath from the four winds, breathe into these slain, that they may live." So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath entered them. They came to life and stood on their feet, a vast army. Then he said to me, "Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, Our bones are dried up, and our hope is gone. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy to them, This is what the sovereign Lord says, My people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am Lord, when I open your graves and bring you up from them. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I am the Lord, have spoken. I have done it, declares the Lord." All right, so you know over all the years that I've been with you, I talked to you about that pivotal time in Israel's history, pre-exilic and post-exilic, Hebrewism, Judaism. This is a prophecy that happened after Babylon completely destroyed and invaded Judah and destroyed Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and took the people of Israel into exile into Babylon. In Psalms, there's Psalm 137, which is a psalm of lament, where the people of Israel are lamenting that what are they to do by the rivers of Babylon? They're missing Zion, and they are so sad and depressed that they cannot even sing. Look at all the implications here. Now that they have been exiled from their land, everything that they know is gone. Their whole foundations for life is gone. Their core beliefs are gone. You see, it's not just they've moved to another country. What this means is that the Babylonian gods were more powerful than Yahweh. Deal with that. What it means is that the Holy of Holies in the center of Jerusalem where God dwells no longer is there. Their core beliefs, everything that they built themselves on, everything that they stood for, no longer exists. Now what are they going to do? Who are they outside of Zion? That's where all of their identity was, right? And they had absolutely no hope. It's a horrible place to be. to be in exile and have absolutely no hope. And we've seen throughout all of human history people who find themselves in this state at some time or another. It's happening in our own country right now. Saw on the news where a young man who was brought to this country when he was 14 by his parents. He immigrated here illegally. He met his wife as a teenager. Later they married. They have children. She's a citizen. His children are U.S. citizens. He's never been in any trouble. They've worked. They built a family. They have a home. They've paid taxes. And he just got deported to a country that he's not seen in 17 years. It's a foreign land to him. They're experiencing this right now. He will not be allowed to return to the United States for 15 years. His children will have grown up without him. They are experiencing the valley of dry bones right now. But this valley of dry bones is a metaphor for all of us, right? I'm sorry, the tests show you have terminal cancer. I'm sorry, your loved one was in an auto accident. I'm sorry. You know how to fill in the rest of the blanks, right? We've all been there at one way or another. Some of us to more extremes than another. Everything about us, our whole identity, something within everything, our core beliefs, our whole foundation is now taken away. Who am I? And sometimes we come to that dark place, the dark night of the soul, where we feel like there is no hope. Even Jesus found himself there, right? My God, why have you what? Forsaken me. If it happens to Jesus, it can happen to any of us. Right. We've all found ourselves at that place. The dark night of the soul. And it's because oftentimes we identify with ourselves with our geography. We identify ourselves with our careers. We identify with ourselves with our names and with our families. Our identity, our beliefs, everything is identified oftentimes with things. And so what God is reminding Ezekiel in this passage and in this vision of the valley of dry bones is that God is still God. So he says to Ezekiel, walk around this valley of dry bones. What do you see, Ezekiel? I see some really dry bones. How dry are they, Ezekiel? They're really dry bones. There's nothing on these bones. These bones have been baking in the sun a long, long time. These are very dry bones. Ezekiel, prophesy to these bones. Can these bones live? And you see, Ezekiel's away from home too. I kind of get a sense when I'm reading it, that Ezekiel's been like God's cheerleader for a long time. And Ezekiel's saying, oh God, only you know. Huh? Only you know. Ezekiel, I need you to prophesy to these bones. All right. Well, that's what I got to do. Start prophesying, Ezekiel. Start prophesying, these bones start coming. Another thing happens to these bones is they start all coming together and all the clinking. Shake, rattle, and roll, right? They all start coming together. And then they are there, right? A mass of people, but they're lifeless. Zombies. I know, like Tiffany, Mike Taylor, The Walking Dead, right? Many of you know I'm a person who enjoys movies. And Steve Case recommended a movie to me once. It's one of the 2 movies in my life I've walked out on. Shaun of the Living Dead, did you? It was a comedy about zombies. I'm not a zombie guy. However, the funny thing about the movie, though, even though it was a movie about zombies, is it showed people going to work And you couldn't tell the people going to work who were alive from the zombies. They were just sitting on the buses and, walking to the office. But there you had all these bodies and all these people and their bones and their flesh, but they had no life in them. Oh, Ezekiel, he said, you need to now pray to the four winds. All right. Now, what I find fascinating in this is the word breath, wind, and spirit. Ancient Hebrew is not anywhere close to the Greek that I'm normally talking to you about. Greek is a very expressive language. When the Septuagint was written, which is the Greek version of the Hebrew scriptures, it's like almost twice as long because it takes that many more Greek words. Hebrew was a very, very tidy language. You can say a whole lot with just a few words. But interestingly enough, the Hebrew word for spirit, breath, and wind is one word just like it is in the Greek. You know the Greek word, right? Pneuma, right? The word we have for pneumonia, breath, wind, and spirit. Ruach. Yeah, you have to put that. Billy Crystal says Hebrew is a language of spitting and coughing. Ruach. It's the same thing, one word. Breath, wind, spirit. And you see that one word throughout this whole passage. Call the four winds, Ezekiel. Put my breath in them, Ezekiel. My spirit. You see? So, yes, there are bodies here, Ezekiel. They've got skin and bone and flesh, Ezekiel, but they don't have my breath in them. They're not fully alive until they have my breath in them, Ezekiel. You see? And this is what God is reminding everyone in this story, is that we can be skin, bones, sinew, flesh, and organs, but we're also spirit. And even though everything that we've put our faith into and everything that is a core of our belief systems and everything that we've placed all of our identity in and it's taken away, it doesn't mean that we've lost all hope, because we're more than that. We're more than that. Years ago, I went to a movie called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Did any of you see that? Probably not, because it's a foreign one. It's French. You have to be into that sort of, it's subtitled. I know, I'm weird that way. But it's a fascinating story about a man named Jean-Dominique Baudet. He was the chief editor of Elle magazine. Extremely successful in life, brilliant. And one day while driving, he had a massive stroke. Massive stroke. He went into a coma, and 20 days later, he came out of his coma to discover he was in what you call locked-in syndrome. In other words, he was completely conscious, but he had no way of communicating anything. And there was a scene in the movie where he awakens, and his mind is working. He hears and sees everything around him, but the people around him have no idea he's conscious, and his right eye is not working. So they have to suture it shut, but that's kind of a metaphor of the story. And so you, as the one watching the movie, you're looking at it from inside his eye, and you start seeing them suture his eyelids together as they're closing the frame. And his mind is saying, no, wait, what are you doing? Oh, wait, I can see, what? I'm thinking, oh my God, that would be terrifying. The only thing he could do, and this was with therapy, was to barely move his head and to blink his left eyelid. That's it. So here you have a man, brilliant, editor-in-chief of a very successful magazine, wealthy, beautiful family, living in France, places all over the world, living the life. And now he is living in a hospital where his mind is fully functioning, and all he can do is move his eyelid. Valley of dry bones. He's in exile. He's no longer in his beautiful home. He's no longer in his beautiful career. He's even in exile in his own body, right? What do you do in this situation? Give up? He decides to write a memoir. The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. What happens is, a woman is brought to him and she transcribes. She calls off the primary letters of French words, and whenever she gets the letter that he's wanting to use to write a word, he blinks his eye. On average, it took 2 minutes to write one word. He wrote his memoir with over 200,000 blinks. It took 2 years. And what he did is he wrote about his experience with lock-in syndrome. What it was like getting a bath. What it was like having people come and see him. What it was like having people come and see him and not come see him again. What it was like seeing his children. What it was like going to the beach. What it was like being fully conscious and yet not being able to communicate. His memoir was published on March the 7th, 1995. It sold 25,000 copies the first day. It sold 150,000 copies the first week. It sold over 1 million copies very quickly. It became a bestseller in no time at all. He died 2 days later, on March the 7th, on March the 9th. But what he did is he was able to give to the medical community and to the world an idea of what it's like to be in lock-in syndrome. What it did is he was able to literally live what God is prophesying Ezekiel to do in this passage. You see, as I was looking at this, I thought, okay, it's one thing to have a prophet in the Old Testament go and, oh, these bones, these dry bones, and isn't this a wonderful story? And, oh, but what does that have to do with my life? What does that have to do with your life? You see? I thought, what is the most outrageous story of exile I can think of? And this was the first one that popped into my mind. That a man who was in such a state of exile, and yet he was still very much alive. And he still was able to contribute to the world with one blink at a time. Writing a word every 2 minutes, 4 hours a day, for 2 years. You see? What God is reminding us in this story is this. Who we are is not our temples. Who we are is not where we were born and where we're raised. We're much more than that. Who we are is much more than the religion that we have or that we've inherited. Our identity is much more than our career and our achievements. Who we are is the Spirit, this breath within us. See? And if something in life happens that all those things are stripped away and we find ourselves in exile, we find ourselves in the dark night of the soul, what God is wanting to do is to remind us, see these bones, these dry bones, you say to yourself, oh, I am utterly without hope. Oh, I have no purpose and nothing in this world. Oh, there's nothing I can do. Nope. Can these bones live? For Jean-Dominique Bauby, they did. For every one of you who have experienced and dealt with tragedy and heartache, and you found yourself in the dark night of the soul, it did. For those of you entering into that deep wilderness and you have no idea how you're going to get through, it will. God is reminding us that God is the breath that makes us alive, you see. Yeah. That's our identity, the Spirit, this eternalness in us. See? It goes way beyond our achievements, way beyond our core beliefs. All those things can be taken away. As Jesus says, your things that you store in your warehouses can be stripped from you, and moths can corrupt, and rust takes away. But the kingdom, the realm of God that lives in your heart and your soul, it's forever. Focus there, for where your treasure is, your heart is also. The other things are important too, and they're worth the investment, but they don't make you. They do not define you. We all have our dark night of the soul, but never lose hope. Never lose hope. Never lose hope, right? Because there's a wind blowing from all four corners. There's a spirit. There's a spirit all around you. And the breath of God is breathing in your nostrils. So that you're not the walking dead, but you're the living light of God on this planet, here, now, and for eternity. And in Israel's history, they have a long history of being people taken away from their land. And once upon a time, they were slaves in Egypt. And there was once a prince of Pharaoh who exiled himself after murdering one of the Egyptians. And while shepherding in a distant land, he came across a burning bush. And lo and behold, talk about old dry bones, Moses is here with us today. Moses, what have you got to say for yourself?
I could have walked by. It was a strange sight, to be sure. But I could have walked past, averted my eyes, and focused on the sheep. Silly little animals. But I had a full-time job. I had a wife, a family. I had no need to notice anything out of the ordinary. Life was full. It was good. Life was all I wanted it to be. And yet, I looked. A bush, burning, and yet not consumed by the flame. I was puzzled. I'm intrigued. It was as if I was called, drawn, and yet invited at the same time. It was not my initiative, but that of somebody speaking to a yearning I did not know I had. A desire that was so deep it was hidden from me. A voice that resonated in me, touching chords in me that vibrated with the harmony of the heavens and beyond. The bush was burning. All that was needed for me was to notice and not walk by. To notice and allow this thing I had never seen before to touch my curiosity and create an attraction that was easier to act on than to ignore. Once attracted, then I knew this bush was not about a burning bush. This was not an interruption to a day going about my daily business. had stepped into the ordinariness of a day and enticed me to step into the extraordinary. In the wideness of the wilderness, God marked out a sanctuary, a holy ground in which he invited me to stand barefoot against the bare sand, so that my body should know in time my soul's encounter with the eternal. God sanctifying human time and space. A bush burning. A small thing, a strange thing, and I could have walked by, but I did not. I took off my shoes and took the risk of standing on that holy ground, a mortal man. I dared to speak with the immortal and omnipotent God of my ancestors, and my God transformed me. History knows my name because God called them first. In order to speak to them of his dreams for them, to release them from that which binds them, to liberate them from their doubt and fears, and to send them renewed, restored, and reinvigorated, and forgiven on the great adventure to the journey of his promised land. Shalom.
We have come at the invitation of our God, called into this place, called into this time, called into the presence of God.
The God of Abraham, who taught humanity to gaze to the stars and await, generation by generation, the fulfillment of his promises.
The God of Isaac, conceived in the promise of angels, delivered by the mercy of God, to bless his son as patriarch, founder of God's people.
The God of Jacob, who wrestled by night with his Creator and at dawn received his blessing.
We come at the invitation of our God, the God whose call echoes across the ages, resounding in time and space, yet intimate and entrancing.
A voice calls us to encounter the grace beyond telling, to encounter healing and transformation, to an encounter that calls us to silence and awe, to encounter the presence whose compassion brings healing, the power that transforms, the love that cherishes into changing.
Steve, if you will come and assist me.